For almost 800 years, the galaxy had one simple rule. If a distress signal mentioned children, don't answer it, not because nobody cared, because everybody did. That was exactly why the trap worked. Entire rescue fleets had disappeared trying to save children they would never meet. Doctors, volunteers, military escorts, cargo captains, every one of them believed they were flying toward innocent lives. Instead, they flew straight into the waiting guns of the Fourth Syndicate. The pirates never attacked planets. They didn't need to. Compassion supplied them with everything. Every fake distress signal brought fresh ships, fresh technology, fresh prisoners. Eventually, every government stopped responding. At first, people protested. Then more rescue fleets vanished. After that, silence became law. Across the galaxy, emergency broadcasts still echoed through deep space. But nobody answered anymore, until one transmission reached a human ship. Captain Daniel Mercer wasn't looking for trouble. His cruiser, UNS Horizon, had spent 3 uneventful months escorting supply convoys near the edge of explored space. His crew was already discussing what they would do during shore leave. Some planned vacations, some wanted to see family. One lieutenant had been talking about homemade pizza for 6 straight days. Nobody expected history to change before dinner. Then the communications officer quietly said, "Captain." Mercer looked up. "What is it?" "I've got a distress signal." Nobody reacted. Distress calls weren't unusual. "What kind?" The officer swallowed. "There are children." Every conversation on the bridge stopped. The recording began playing through the speakers. Static, heavy breathing, then a little girl's voice. "If anybody can hear us, my name is Lyra. Our ship can't move anymore. The bad people are coming back. They took my mom. They said they'll take the rest of us tomorrow. Please." The message ended. Silence filled the bridge. Nobody moved, not because they didn't care, because every officer knew exactly what they just heard. Lieutenant Harris finally spoke. "It's fake." No one disagreed. Mercer folded his arms. "Distance, 42 light minutes. Known pirate territory? Yes. Probability it's another syndicate trap, 99.7%. Another officer sighed. "They're using children again." No anger, no surprise, just exhaustion. Mercer stared at the stars outside the bridge. Then he asked something unexpected. "When was the last real distress signal?" The computer answered immediately. 9 years. 9 years. Not one genuine emergency involving children had been answered, because nobody believed them anymore. Mercer rubbed his forehead. The pirates hadn't just stolen ships, they had destroyed trust itself. That bothered him a lot. Half a galaxy away, inside a hidden asteroid fortress. The Fourth Syndicate listened too. Their scanners had intercepted the human ship. The pirate commander smiled. "Species confirmed." A technician looked confused. "Humans? Never caught one before." The commander laughed. "They're new. They'll come." Every species came. Some hesitated. Some sent drones first. Some called for reinforcements. Eventually, they all arrived. Compassion was predictable. Fear wasn't stronger than hope, never had been. The commander leaned back. "Prepare boarding teams. No heavy weapons. We want the ship intact." His crew laughed. Someone asked, "What if they don't come?" The commander smiled even wider. "They heard children. They'll come." Back aboard the Horizon, Captain Mercer still hadn't given an order. His officers waited. Nobody wanted to be the first to speak. Finally, Chief Engineer Olivia Grant broke the silence. "My daughter is 8. Nobody replied. Grant continued quietly. "If that message is real, I don't think I could live with myself." Lieutenant Harris answered immediately. "And if it's fake, none of us will." Again, silence. Mercer stood. "Navigation. Set course." Several heads snapped toward him. Harris blinked. "Captain, it's a trap. I know, we're outnumbered. I know." "We'll probably," Mercer interrupted him. "I didn't say we were rescuing them." The bridge became very quiet. Mercer walked toward the main display. "The Syndicate has run this scam for 800 years. They think they understand compassion." He smiled. "They don't understand humans." The crew exchanged confused looks. Mercer tapped the screen. "Every pirate trap follows the same assumption. They think rescuers arrive desperate. They think emotion defeats planning. He looked around the bridge. So let's disappoint them. Instead of increasing speed, the horizon slowed down. Instead of broadcasting, it went completely silent. Instead of flying directly toward the distress signal, it disappeared. At least, that's what the pirates believed. Deep inside the asteroid field, the syndicate waited. Minutes passed, then an hour, still nothing. The commander frowned. Where are they? His sensor officer checked again. No human vessel detected. The commander frowned harder. Impossible. They answered the signal. They have to come. Another 30 minutes passed. Still nothing. For the first time in years, the pirates started feeling something unfamiliar. Uncertainty. Then one young technician whispered, "Commander, I think they're behind us." The bridge fell silent. Slowly, every pirate turned toward the tactical display. A single human ship had somehow appeared directly behind the asteroid fortress. Its engines were cold, its weapons were powered, and its communication system finally came alive. Captain Daniel Mercer's voice echoed through every pirate ship. "We heard your distress signal." A long pause followed. Then he calmly added, "We also heard the 23 others you forgot to turn off." Nobody on the pirate flagship spoke. The human captain had just exposed something that should have been impossible. 23 distress signals. The syndicate only transmitted one. The commander spun toward his communications officer. "What is he talking about?" The officer's hands flew across the controls. A moment later, his face went pale. "Commander, he's right." Hidden across the asteroid field, 23 emergency beacons were still active. Some had been transmitting for decades. Some were so weak they barely appeared on modern scanners. Others repeated the same desperate messages over and over. Every one of them belonged to a rescue mission that had never returned. The commander slammed his fist onto the console. "Shut them down!" One by one, the signals disappeared. Captain Mercer watched from the horizon, then he quietly smiled. "They're cleaning the crime scene." Lieutenant Harris looked confused. "You expected that," Mercer nodded. "Exactly," Grant frowned. "But why tell them?" "Because frightened people make mistakes." Almost immediately, the sensor officer interrupted. "They're moving. Multiple pirate ships leaving defensive positions." Mercer looked at the tactical display. "There it is. The first mistake." For 8 centuries, the syndicate had never hunted humans. There was a simple reason. Humans had only joined the Galactic Coalition 40 years earlier. The pirates knew almost nothing about them. Their intelligence reports were laughably incomplete. Population, industrial output, fleet numbers, basic weapon specifications, everything looked ordinary. One report described humans as emotionally driven mammals with unusually high rescue response rates. The pirate commander believed every word. He looked at the horizon. 1 cruiser, 48 boarding teams. "This ends quickly," he gave the order. Every pirate ship accelerated. Nobody aboard the horizon panicked. Nobody reached for escape pods. Nobody shouted. The bridge was almost relaxed. One young ensign finally asked the question everyone had been wondering. "Captain, if this is the plan, when do we start fighting?" Mercer answered without looking away from the display. "We already started." 3 minutes earlier, while everyone had been watching the horizon, tiny objects had drifted away from the ship. Not missiles, not mines, something much smaller. Each one was barely larger than a baseball. Cold, silent, invisible against the asteroid field. Now, thousands of them surrounded the pirate fleet. The communications officer smiled. "They still haven't noticed," Mercer nodded. "They won't. They're looking at the predator. They never look for the swarm." The pirate commander raised his hand. "Prepare boarding pods." He wanted the human ship intact. Human technology would sell for a fortune. Besides, fear spread faster through prisoners than wreckage. His first officer suddenly frowned. "Commander, I'm detecting hundreds of unidentified objects." "Where?" "Everywhere." The bridge became quiet. The tactical display began filling with tiny blue dots. Dozens, hundreds, thousands. The commander laughed. "Debris. Ignore it." The sensor officer didn't sound convinced. "They're changing direction." Silence. "They're heading toward us." Captain Mercer finally gave his first combat order. "Wake them up!" Grant pressed one button. Across the asteroid field, every tiny object came alive, not with explosions, with signals, millions of encrypted signals. Every pirate radar system suddenly received thousands of conflicting targets. Enemy computers froze, missiles locked onto friendly ships, navigation systems disagreed with themselves, entire formations broke apart. One pirate captain screamed, "My sensors say we're inside an asteroid." Another shouted, "My weapons are tracking our own engines." Within seconds, the perfectly organized pirate ambush became complete chaos. Mercer watched calmly. "Phase 1 complete." Lieutenant Harris couldn't hide his grin. "I thought we'd built electronic warfare drones." Grant laughed. "We did. They just happened to fit in your pocket." The pirate commander roared in frustration. "Fire anyway!" The order echoed across the fleet. Hundreds of plasma cannons opened fire. Most missed. Several struck nearby asteroids. 3 pirate ships accidentally destroyed each other. Another collided with a cruiser while trying to evade imaginary missiles. The commander stared in disbelief. This isn't possible," Mercer quietly corrected him. "It isn't expected. There is a difference." Then something happened that nobody aboard the Horizon had anticipated. The distress signal changed. Instead of repeating, it became live. The little girl's voice returned. This time, she was crying, "Please, I heard explosions. Are you really here?" The bridge froze. Grant slowly looked toward Mercer. "Captain, that wasn't part of the recording." Nobody answered. The communications officer checked every frequency. His heartbeat became noticeably faster. "It's coming from inside the asteroid fortress," Harris whispered. ... It's real." The room suddenly felt much smaller. Mercer stared at the signal for nearly 5 minutes. He hadn't believed a single word. Now, one sentence changed everything. "We're really here." The little girl wasn't asking for help anymore. She was asking if someone had actually come. Mercer closed his eyes for 1 second, then opened them again. His voice became completely different, no longer cautious, no longer calculating, just certain. "Locate her." The sensor officer swallowed. "Sir, the fortress is massive. Thousands of life signs." Mercer nodded. "Find the children." Grant looked at him. "What about the pirate fleet?" Mercer smiled. "They're no longer the mission. They're the obstacle." The bridge became absolutely silent. Everyone understood what that meant. This was no longer an investigation. It had become a rescue, and every human aboard the Horizon knew exactly what happened when innocent people became the mission. Captain Mercer looked at the tactical display for only a second before making his decision. "Forget the pirate fleet." Every officer turned toward him. "Our priority has changed." The communications officer hesitated. "Captain, there are almost 60 enemy ships between us and that fortress." Mercer nodded. "I know. We're not going around them." A nervous smile appeared on Lieutenant Harris's face. "We're going through them." Mercer finally smiled. "Now you're thinking like a human." Inside the asteroid fortress, the little girl held the old transmitter with both hands. It was far too heavy for her. She didn't know how it worked. She only knew the older children had spent weeks repairing it with scraps stolen from pirate workshops. Every night, when the guards changed shifts, they secretly searched through broken electronics. Tiny wires, damaged batteries, burned out circuit boards. None of them were engineers. They were just children trying to survive. Everyone had told them it was hopeless. Nobody answered distress signals anymore, not for children, not after what the syndicate had done, but Lyra refused to believe that. Every single day, she transmitted the same message, sometimes for hours, sometimes until the batteries died. Most of the older children only pretended to believe her. They smiled because she needed hope, not because they expected rescue. Then they heard explosions, real explosions, not pirate weapons, something much bigger. One of the older boys slowly looked toward the ceiling. "They came!" Nobody answered. Nobody wanted to believe it. Hope was dangerous. Hope had broken their hearts too many times before. Outside, the pirate commander realized the human cruiser wasn't slowing down. It was accelerating, straight toward the center of the asteroid field. His tactical officer looked horrified. "They're heading directly for the fortress." The commander laughed. "They'll never make it." Thousands of automated defense cannons surrounded the base. Minefields floated between the asteroids. Hidden missile batteries waited behind layers of rock. No ship had ever crossed that defensive network, not once. The commander relaxed. "Let them try." Captain Mercer wasn't looking at the defenses. He was looking at the asteroids, every one of them. For the last 15 minutes, the Horizon's computers had been mapping the entire field, not just the enemy ships. Everything, every rock, every tunnel, every piece of drifting debris. Finally, the navigation computer finished. A blue line appeared across the display. Grant stared at it. No way! The computer had found something impossible. A safe path, not wide enough for most ships, barely wide enough for one. Mercer smiled. "Helm, follow the blue line." The Horizon accelerated. To the pirates, it looked completely insane. The cruiser twisted between tumbling asteroids with barely a few meters to spare. One mistake would have torn the ship apart, yet every movement was perfect. Every turn happened at exactly the right moment. Missiles slammed into empty space behind them. Defense cannons couldn't predict where the ship would appear next. Even the Horizon's crew struggled to keep up. The helmsman laughed nervously. "I've flown fighters easier than this." Mercer never looked away from the display. "Trust the computer." The pirate commander watched in disbelief. "They're using the asteroid field." "No, they're using our own defenses against us." One by one, defense cannons opened fire, not at the Horizon, at each other. The human cruiser flew so close to pirate installations that every automated turret identified neighboring batteries as hostile targets. Explosions spread across the fortress like fireworks. The commander slammed both hands onto the console. "Disable the defense network. It's too late." The Horizon burst through the final layer of defenses. For the first time, the fortress came into full view. It wasn't just a pirate base. It was a prison. Hundreds of docked civilian ships, thousands of damaged escape pods, cargo containers converted into living quarters. Mercer's expression changed. "So that's where everyone went," Grant quietly whispered. "My God!" Records from hundreds of missing ships appeared across the scanners. Some had vanished decades earlier, others only months ago. The pirates hadn't been killing everyone, they had been keeping them. Silence settled over the bridge. Not because anyone was afraid, because everyone was angry, very angry. Mercer slowly spoke. "No orbital bombardment." Grant looked surprised. "Captain, there are too many civilians." "So what do we do?" Mercer answered without hesitation. "We go inside." Lieutenant Harris blinked. "Inside the fortress, with Marines?" Mercer shook his head. "No, with everyone." The bridge stared at him. Mercer folded his arms. "If those children spent weeks rebuilding a transmitter, they've probably spent years learning everything about this place." Grant immediately understood. "They're already fighting." Mercer nodded. "They just need someone to fight with." Deep inside the prison, Lyra heard footsteps. Heavy footsteps, the pirates. One guard ripped the transmitter from her hands. "I told you to stop sending that stupid message." He raised his weapon. "You've caused enough trouble." Before he could pull the trigger, every light in the corridor went out. The fortress fell completely silent. Then, emergency alarms exploded throughout the station. A terrified voice echoed across every speaker. "Human vessel has breached the outer defense ring," another voice shouted over it. "They're inside the perimeter." Panic spread instantly. The guard looked toward the ceiling. For the first time in years, the pirates weren't hunting. They were scared, very scared. Lyra slowly smiled. She didn't know who the humans were. She didn't know how many had come. But she knew one thing: someone had answered. The alarms hadn't stopped screaming. Across the fortress, pirates abandoned control rooms, weapons, even prisoners. Nobody had prepared for this. For nearly 800 years, every rescue mission ended the same way. Ships arrived, ships died. Today, the humans had skipped that part entirely. Captain Mercer watched hundreds of red markers rushing through the fortress. "They're falling back." Lieutenant Harris nodded. They're protecting something, Mercer smiled. No, they're protecting someone. The tactical display zoomed deeper into the station. At the very center, behind layers of reinforced armor, a massive chamber appeared. Grant frowned. That's not a prison, Mercer quietly answered. No, it's a command bunker, and they're all running toward it. Then the communications officer interrupted. Captain, I'm intercepting pirate transmissions. Put them through. The bridge filled with overlapping voices. Protect the director. Get him off the station. Forget the prisoners. Save the director. Mercer looked at Grant. So there was never a commander. There was a businessman. The realization hit everyone at once. The syndicate wasn't an empire. It wasn't an army. It was a corporation. Every fake distress signal, every stolen ship, every kidnapped child, every prisoner had simply been inventory. People weren't enemies. They were products. The bridge fell silent. Grant finally whispered, "They've been selling entire civilizations." Mercer didn't answer. He didn't need to. Everyone already knew. Inside the prison, Lyra heard gunfire growing closer. The pirates were running, not fighting, running. One of the older boys looked through a cracked maintenance hatch. "They're leaving us." Another child asked the question nobody wanted to say aloud. "What if they come back?" Before anyone answered, the entire fortress shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. Then a voice echoed through every corridor. "Calm, steady, human. This is Captain Daniel Mercer of the United Nations Starship Horizon. If you are a civilian, stay where you are. We're coming." For several seconds, nobody moved. The children simply stared at each other. Lyra smiled first, then another child, then another. Soon, every child in that dark room was crying, not because they were afraid, because someone had finally kept a promise. Meanwhile, the pirate director's shuttle launched from the hidden hangar. The commander smiled for the first time in hours. "If the director escapes, we can rebuild." His relief lasted exactly 6 seconds. Then every alarm aboard the shuttle activated. The pilot froze. "Sir, there's another human ship." The director frowned. "Impossible. They only had one cruiser." The pilot zoomed out. "No, sir. There are hundreds." Beyond the asteroid field, space itself seemed to split open. One after another, human warships emerged from hyperspace. Destroyers, carriers, hospital ships, rescue transports, engineering vessels, more than 200 ships. The pirate director stared in disbelief. Where did they come from?" Captain Mercer answered, not directly, but his transmission reached every ship in the system. "Rescue Protocol Atlas, Stage 2 complete." The pirate commander frowned. "What is Atlas?" Grant smiled. "It means you're already surrounded." For centuries, human rescue doctrine had followed one simple rule. The first ship never traveled alone, it traveled first. Every rescue mission secretly activated an entire network. Medical ships, engineers, fleet support, special forces, evacuation teams, not because humans expected trouble, because they expected the unexpected. The Horizon had never been sent to defeat the Syndicate. Its real mission was to confirm the location. Everything after that had already been planned years before. The pirate director slowly collapsed into his chair. You knew," Mercer's voice remained calm. "We suspected. You still came. Of course, you knew it was a trap," Mercer smiled. "Yes." The director almost laughed. "Then why?" For the first time, Mercer's voice became personal. "Because somewhere inside that station, a little girl still believed someone would answer." Silence filled every frequency. Even the pirates stopped speaking. Over the next 6 hours, human Marines entered every section of the fortress. Not one child was left behind. More than 12,000 civilians were rescued. Some had been prisoners for 50 years. Some had never even seen a planet. Doctors treated everyone equally, even wounded pirates. That confused the prisoners almost as much as the rescue itself. One elderly alien finally asked a human medic, "Why are you helping them?" The medic smiled while wrapping a pirate's injured arm. "Because once the fighting ends, they're just people." Months later, the fortress no longer existed. It had become the largest memorial in known space. Every rescued family planted a single tree, one for every distress signal that had gone unanswered. At the center stood a simple monument, no statues, no giant warships, just one sentence. Hope only has to be answered once. Visitors came from every corner of the galaxy, not to remember the battle, but to remember the little girl who refused to stop transmitting. Years later, cadets at every human naval academy learned the same lesson on their first day. A rescue mission isn't about believing every distress call. It's about making sure that when one is real, someone is still willing to answer.